Welcome, everybody. This is Beer Guys Radio. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Hump Day, beverages, and beer discussion. It's a good time. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing good, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Brian, did you get a haircut?
No. It's just my hair is doing something weird right now. It's
I was gonna say it doesn't look like a haircut. So it's
Okay.
that looks like a I was busy today. I didn't get a chance to do my hair the proper way I wanted it to, so I just kind of combed it the best I could, and we're rocking on with what we've got.
that's pretty close. That's a
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
accurate thing. It's a little poofier.
yeah.
Yes. It's a rush job, and for some reason I look like a televangelist or something like that today. I don't know why.
Praise Recris.
That's right.
Have you ever been at work and you don't think you've got any meetings that day, so you're not like meeting ready, and then someone's like, "Hey, let's have a meeting," and like a cameras on meeting?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
You ever
yeah.
got?
I think that's happened to me a couple of times.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Like our leadership team at work, if any of the execs are on there, then it's always cameras on. So when I first started at this job, I went into every meeting with camera on, and like the third meeting, my manager's like, "Hey, no, we don't got to do that." So I was like, no, we're just gonna chill here.
You know what? This is a topic that's come up on my job because while everybody's
Yeah,
working remotely, cameras on. I think cameras are distracting. I get that they give context when people are joking around or they're having a serious discussion about something. Sometimes you can't tell what people mean, but for the most part, and I work in a technology, but for the most part, I find them distracting because I'm worried about not looking like an idiot at the same time while I'm trying to pay attention to what's going on. So you lose some mental bandwidth because now you're seeing other people. Now you're worried about what you look like. I'm like, let's just get that out of the way. I get it. Like if we were in an office, you'd be looking at people, and there are times when it makes sense to do it,
yeah.
and I wouldn't feel as weird about it in the office, but for some reason at home, being on the camera, it becomes a thing. So yeah.
I disagree with you, and I
What?
believe more meetings should be on camera meetings since we're all remote. I believe that FaceTime would be important to the betterment of your team.
That's you're allowed to be wrong about things, Tim.
Yeah.
That's part of
Yes,
the
you are,
great things
Brian.
about being in this
You're
country.
welcome.
You
You're
can be
welcome.
wrong. I think that has a time and a place, and the place is not every place, and the time is not every time. So
Agreed. But
yeah.
yeah, I could say, I mean, that there's definitely things that are more a phone call or a voice Teams meeting as it would be. But enough about work and meetings and that. Let's rock on. Let me get down here, y'all. Please, if you have anything you'd like to share, say, or ask, throw it in the chat. We'll be here. We'd love to chat with you. And here we go. Welcome everyone to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're happy to be here. We're happy to have you with us, as we do here. We get together, we talk about beer, we have a few beers, and have a good time. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Tim. How are you?
I am doing very, very well. And Mike Nate, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good, good. I'm a little scratchy today, guys. A little scratch. I actually took a couple hours of sick time at work this week and just laid down, took some meds, and that it felt like a cold or allergies have kind of been on and off coming at me this week. Anybody else experiencing that?
Well, it is
Brian,
No,
pollen. It's getting to be pollen season, so
it's pollen
remember,
starting to get polleny.
the
Yeah.
yeah, that's
hanging
right.
yellow dust of death is coming our way.
Yeah. I tried to get it, had a hot cup of this ginger drink that's supposed to help your voice and that because I don't want to be all scratchy on here, but I'm doing the best that I can, y'all. I am doing the best that I can. So, Brian, fun fact, Nate, how old are you?
34.
You are 34. Okay, so Nate, while he was in his bassinet, would have probably been listening to this album. This week, Brian, REM's Out of Time turned 33.
Isn't that crazy?
I can't believe that was 33 years ago. I was thinking though when I saw that news earlier that REM is probably one of the groups that listens to their music most does a job of transporting me to that time and place. Like I can feel it. I can feel what was going on, the partying, just the vibe there of that time period when REM was hot stuff.
I definitely get that from them as well. There's a few bands that do that for me, but yeah, that one's there's definitely a feeling of that era for me. The back in the era wherein MTV was a big deal and it played
Right?
music videos and not much else, and you could sit there and watch them for hours because that was the most interesting thing you could do with your time, especially being a young kid. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That would have been, I believe, I may have had some of their stuff on cassette. I'm almost sure I had some of their stuff on cassette, but I know I had them in the 630 CD disc catalog that you flip through like a notebook.
Yes.
I know I had them as part of that. What's your favorite REM song, Brian?
Oh, favorite overall? On it, losing my religion probably is still honorarily my favorite because it's the one that introduced me to them. It's the one I fell in love with. I still very much like that song. In practically speaking, I might not play it nearly as often as some other stuff. I got to know REM from this album, from Out of Time. A lot of people. I went back and listened to Green a fair amount. I didn't listen to a lot of the earlier stuff. Beyond that, a little bit in like mixed situations, but I'm a lot of REM fans didn't like the Monster album. I loved Monster. I played the heck out of that too. So I loved Out of Time and I love Monster. So I think that makes me a bit of an anomaly. I did like the earlier stuff as well when I hear it, but it's a playlist type of situation when I hear the earlier stuff.
I'm big. What's the frequency, Kenneth? That's definitely mine. The one I burn up the most. I like Finest Work Song a
That's
lot
a good one.
as
Yeah.
well. And Harbor Coat, a little different flavor for them, but also a good tune. So now,
Yeah.
Nate, not exactly your time period, but do you know anything about REM? You a fan?
So I've listened to more REM around you two boys than I have
Okay,
on my
fair.
own. I was thinking if you were to ask me what my favorite REM song, what would it be? And the only one I could come up with, not favorite, just the only REM song I could come up with on the spot was It's the End of the World as We Know It. And so I'm gonna say
Ooh.
that's my favorite because that's the only one I can think of.
That's the one I know, so that's the favorite. That works. That's fine. That's what. But
Yeah.
Brian, I think relevant to a beer tie-in here, I'll throw this out. We have a beer. Nate, do you have this one too? The 99 Experiment.
I was not able to get it on short
Okay,
notice.
so in the late 90s here in Atlanta, there was a radio station called 99X that was the alt rock station. I believe not only in Atlanta, but got a lot of press around the country. They had
Yes.
the Morning X, they did all kinds of fun stuff. It was just a great radio station. As far as the markets that I've been in, really the last great radio station, in my opinion. So, Brian, what do you think? Is it, again, in our market? I know LA and New York have their bangers, but definitely here. But they were the alt rock station, and they did things to throw a little history. I remember in the late 90s going down to Buckhead back when Peachtree Street there was the strip when everything was there. There was the Atlanta Beer Garden, a brew pub that, man, they've been going 25 plus years, I guess, or somewhere in that. But they would do 99X, I believe it was called Disco Inferno, maybe on Sundays when they would play like, retro stuff, the old stuff, or no, it was not. It was Resurrection Sunday when they
Okay.
played like the early alt rock. So, but we go down there, hang out, have beers, and listen to that. But we have a beer that was recently brewed. 99X is relaunched here in Atlanta, and they got with Mutation Brewing and did a beer called the 99 Experiment. And it is a West Coast Pilsner, I believe is the style on that, Brian. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're calling it an experimental West Coast Pilsner, and
Okay.
I don't know. It's an experiment for them, but it's categorized and untapped as just Pilsner other. So yeah, it's
Okay.
a little bit of a dry hop Pilsner is the best I can
Yeah. Yeah.
nail it
But
down.
they would have played a ton of REM, and of course, all the. I know the station on Sirius now is called Lithium, but all the
Oh
grunge
yeah.
and all of that of the day, they would have played that. And we do have Tyler's got to vote for not Shiny Happy People as his not favorite REM song. So that's fair. You're allowed to have not favorites there too. But
I
good
think they went
times, man.
That one got overplayed. I'll be honest with you. I liked it initially, and it came out really strong after losing my religion, and I got tired of that one actually pretty quick. So it's there are other songs in the album I probably like more than Shiny Happy People. So
That's fair. That's another one that, like you said, it was just played to death. Not my favorite either. I'm with I'm with Tyler. Not my favorite REM song. I think they have a lot that I enjoy a lot more. But that one was popular, at least according to the radio play, for sure.
it definitely was.
Yeah. Well, we've made it. Last week was our St. Patrick's Day show, and this weekend is St. Patrick's weekend. So all the festivities will be going on. And Brian, you found out after we recorded last week's show that this is actually a historic St. Patrick's Day for Savannah, Georgia, correct?
That's right. Yeah, Savannah's. This is the 200th anniversary of Savannah's St. Patrick's Day parade. Yeah, and they'll be holding it on Saturday when the show drops, and they've already lit up their city hall in bright green lights to mark the occasion. So, yeah, that's I figured it was worth a shout out because they are, I think, the third largest. They claim to be the third largest after New York and Chicago, I believe, are the ones that are ahead of them. So it's not it's not trivial. So what is that? 1824 is when they started this up. I guess that's crazy to think
the
about.
math
Yeah.
checks out, Brian.
Does it check out?
It does check out. Yeah.
Doing math on the fly while I'm drinking beer is just not one of my strong suits. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. Have you been over to Savannah for St. Patrick's Day?
I never have. No,
I haven't either. No.
no.
Nate, have you done it?
I'm not.
Okay.
I really want to
yeah.
though. I think it'll be a good time.
I have not done Savannah for St. Patrick's Day, and I've never gone to Helen, Georgia for Oktoberfest.
I have done that, and that is a really good time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, you know what? That's not true. I met many years ago when I was a lot more chill in my drinking. Back when I was a married man, I think we did the family trip up there for Oktoberfest, but have not been as a single partying dude that I am today. So yeah,
such a party dude.
I am a party animal. That is true, but we'll have to put that on the list. That's got to be a good time.
I've been up there around the time of Oktoberfest, but never like officially at Oktoberfest stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just one of those things. I'm not huge into crowds. That's part of it, but I like the festivities. I like the feeling of it all, but yeah, I like a more chill situation myself.
One of my coworkers is headed over to Ireland tomorrow, and she's going to be in Dublin for the parade. She's going to attend the parade there on St. Patrick's Day and stuff. So she's pretty stoked. I got to say, if you got to deal with the crowd, that St. Patrick's Day in Dublin would be one that would get a pass, to do that. I would definitely go over there and do that. Yeah, for sure. Well, Brian, some legislative news. We try and keep an eye on what's going on around the country. We just recently had our loss here in Georgia, where our beer bill did not move forward, didn't make it out of committee, just died. And that was a multi-year bill. So it's not when it didn't go anywhere last year, they were disappointed, but they're like, you know what? We're making people aware, this and that. We'll come back at it next year. And again, just didn't go anywhere. So that's been a hot button topic, and we've chatted about it a lot. And recently some news came out that Wyoming signed a bill into a law that has some better for small brewers, Brian. So what's the details on this law in Wyoming?
Yeah, so it allows small brewers to terminate their contracts with their wholesaler without cause. And small breweries in this case are breweries in or out of state that produce less than 25,000 barrels a year. It removes what requirement that had been there for them to go through a whole lengthy and costly litigation process. It establishes a 45-day window and a fair market value payment to the wholesaler. So they have to buy their way out of their agreement, which if it's a contract, I guess that makes some sense. And it goes into effect January 1st. So good work, Wyoming. Nicely done. This is not an easy thing to achieve, as we've seen here. We've tried this kind of thing several times over the years. And there's just we're not getting anywhere with it at all.
And the fair market value payout, I mean, that makes sense. The wholesaler has purchased inventory. If you're trying to get out of there, take your beer with you, then understandable. Removing the lengthy and costly litigation is important, because I don't know the exact details of the way it works in Georgia. I know there are guidelines for severing that distributor relationship, but it's a lot of hoops. I mean, it's not as easy as they want to make you think it is, to make that happen. And Brian, some related news to toss up in this. And an article came out earlier this week from, I forget the name of the paper, but it was Martin Smith of the Georgia Beer Wholesalers Association. He's the executive director of the Georgia Beer Wholesalers Association. And way back in the early days of Beer Guys Radio, Aaron Williams and I, co-host emeritus, as you may say, with Aaron, had lunch with Martin Smith and his PR, or his PR person. We talked about the discrepancies, between the brewers and the wholesalers. And this is at a time, I don't remember if it was SB 63 or SB 85, but we had bills up in Georgia to change some of the laws. We had a decent lunch, a decent conversation, talked about changes, went on. In the meeting, he commented that he was open to some reasonable changes, and just wanted to protect his business interest. Understandable, whatever. Fast forward to this article that came out last week, and Martin made a lot of claims that, man, I don't want to get hit for libel or slander or anything, but I would like to see some proof to validate the claims and comments that he made in that article. And, commenting that Georgia is the best state for beer, commenting that self-distribution, the reforming the franchise law would hurt breweries. And the big one here that they try and throw this out a lot to speak to their, let's face it, Georgia Beer Wholesalers, that's all. It's a political organization. It's not just a trade organization. But the big one was saying that the current 3-tier system protects the children, Brian. And so he threw that one out there. And the article was written basically where it sounded like they sent him a list of questions and he replied back to them, and they printed that. And that was that. It wasn't like, investigative journalism type things or anything like that. And these things are heard and seen and believed by people. And it makes the fight even worse for Georgia Beer, because you throw out, well, this is for the kids, then they're like, oh yeah, we don't want the kids getting alcohol. We don't want that. Saying this is the best state for brewers, saying that changing these laws would hurt the brewers. It's just, it's a tough fight, and making statements that are untrue. Again, if he would validate those statements with any kind of data, I'd be happy to come back on and say I'm wrong. But this isn't unique to Georgia, these kind of tactics from wholesalers. And that's just part, you're not just, fighting to get these things changed with politicians who have their pockets lined by people with other business interests in that. But then this kind of stuff comes out. So long-winded way to say it sucks here in Georgia. It's a tough fight, and congratulations to Wyoming. So
exactly. It's important to protect the children of the brewers from the money that their parents would have been making.
Absolutely.
Had somebody not been forced in between them to collect a good percentage of that money. Protect them from that dangerous money. Yes.
That's right. Keep them humble. Make sure they live, by meager means.
Impoverished if possible.
Well, it'll just make them appreciate things more. Like,
oh, for sure.
Like a sandwich or something. They'll be like, man,
yeah.
We can actually have sandwiches this week.
A couple of quarters to, I don't know, buy milk at lunch. Yeah. These kinds of things.
I wonder if anybody would print, if I answered those kind of questions. I just made up whatever I wanted to. That, the current 3-tier system is killing the wells and is responsible for the hole in the ozone layer. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If you pay a journalist to write that for you, then yes, you absolutely could get that published. Yes.
And Brian, I want to add in, when we met with Martin there, Mr. Smith, we invited him to come on the show with Nancy Palmer, who was the executive director of the Georgia Craft Brewers Guild at the time. And we made some concessions that we wouldn't normally make. We told him, we let him listen to the show before we launched it, because he was afraid it was going to be an attack campaign. That wasn't our intentions at all. We just wanted to have a two-way conversation here on these issues. He initially agreed. A few days later, his PR guy sent an email withdrawing that and commenting that they didn't want to be in a he said, she said situation. Now, of course, if you're both there talking, that's not really what we're talking about here if you're both having your voice heard. And he also said that we'd made the comment that we had to play to our audience. I will say I don't recall saying that specifically or really anything along those lines, but those were their reasons for not coming on the show.
It is difficult to construct your straw men when there are opposing viewpoints
Right.
in the studio.
Yeah.
So those straw men, very, very fragile. They need only the most isolated of environments and little to no editing whatsoever of opinions or interjection of
Yeah.
other thoughts. No matter how reasonable they might appear, could blow those straw men right over. You just don't wanna do
Absolutely.
that.
And,
Absolutely terrible.
for what it's worth, Brian, you could say, well, you guys are a craft beer focused show. Of course, he doesn't want to come into enemy territory there. That's just, there's just no point in that. It's my understanding that he wouldn't do this anywhere. He wouldn't sit down,
course
one on
not.
one with Nancy anywhere and have this discussion. So I think that should say a lot, honestly.
I think it's interesting that they consider us an enemy, whereas I do not consider distributors an enemy necessarily. I think that there are some that clearly are, but there are ones that I do like, even locally, that I think are models of how they should behave.
Frenemy, Brian, isn't
Yeah,
that
even
that
if
a
some
frenemy?
of them
Yeah.
say dumb things on social media, I still
Yeah.
like them. Yeah, I still think
And-
overall they're a good thing. So
And let's face it, Brian, a lot of these breweries wouldn't be where they are today without their distribution partners. That's absolutely,
Correct.
that's something that
Correct.
we're not going to act like it doesn't exist. The wholesalers and distributors definitely perform a valuable service, and they can be really good partners to the breweries out there. And there are definitely brewers that do have good relationships, but I know a lot of stories where it's not. And a wholesaler absolutely can hurt a brewery. A wholesaler definitely can minimize sales for a brewer.
they
if
could put them
choose
out of
to.
business,
So,
and we've seen it
Absolutely.
yeah,
happen.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's times when I've heard brewers say that retailers were saying they were calling the wholesaler placing orders and they just weren't taking them. They just simply weren't filling the orders. So, yeah, a lot can go on there with that, Brian.
Indeed.
But
Indeed.
sometimes you just got to kick back, have a Bapple, and chill, right?
What's a Bapple?
Yeah, that's well, it's a good thing you asked that. So I learned this week from Vine Pair apparently that Busch Light Apple, the diehard fans call it Bapple. It has a cult following, despite the fact it has been discontinued since some point in 2022. But it was introduced as a summer seasonal in 2020. And due to like overwhelming like positive response to it, it became a regular release in 2021, and again a year later was discontinued and to be replaced by Busch Light Peach, which fans of Bapple say is too sweet and too fake in comparison. So it's kind of nuts. If you look around, there's a lot. There are communities of people that go out of their way to try to bring it back or to find some. There are online petitions that have been created to bring it back with thousands of signatures. There are people that have said that they've sold them for like cases of them for like $60 a case. And I think that's on the low end because I've seen other people talking about paying whatever it takes and driving hours to buy them if necessary. So there are people that are incredibly dedicated to Bapple. Yeah, people have been trying to come up with ways to clone it, make it at home. Yeah, so it's a whole thing, and I just became aware of it this week. I thought it was really amusing, so it's been going on for a while. But my question to you guys: is there a beer like that?
Hold up.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
we
Yeah,
need to talk about this.
you need a comment on it.
So
Okay, all
you
right.
said that you just discovered it. So that answers my question. You have not tried it, right?
No,
Okay,
I don't believe I've
okay.
ever had it before.
Nate, have you Bappled?
So I have not Bappled, but I did look at Untapped to see what people are saying about it in this current year. And a lot of people are drinking Bapple that have born-ons from 2022, and they
That's
say it
great.
tastes like apple cider vinegar and that it could be reclassified as a sour. And so
Oh,
these are the diehard
Okay.
fans, and they're checking in as like a 4.75 or a 5 out of 5. And these are the diehard fans. If you just go into Untapped and look up Busch Light Apple, they're
That's
there
awesome.
waiting to show you how much they love this beer. And a lot of the commenters are saying, like, when they check it in, their description, they just say, bring it back. I want to have this beer back in my life.
Bring it back. Wasn't there a Bud Light Apple?
It
yeah, I
was.
think there is.
Okay.
And I
I
think some
think
people.
I'm almost sure I heard that was discontinued, or maybe the Busch Light apple replaced it? Maybe they just went to a
There
different
are
brand with it.
I think there's one from I want to say Labatt Blue and a Bud Light or Budweiser apple or Bud Light apple. I'm not sure which one it is, and I don't know how many of those still are in existence. But when I was looking through threads that were linked to or mentioned in like Reddit and other places, uh, they were talking about, well, try getting this. This is pretty close, and I don't.
Okay.
It just
Okay.
doesn't seem like that was working for people. Other people were talking about, well, just get your Bush Light and pour a little, like a shot of apple juice in there, of the right kind, and that apparently would, for some people, that's good enough. But there are people that just love this stuff, and
Okay.
they've been hoarding it. It's like people were talking about buying like 20 or 30 cases of it because they knew it was going away, which is just insane.
That is crazy. And Brian, I believe you were going to ask as we had more Bapple discussion. So I'll ask you: is there a beer that you would create a petition to bring back?
I would probably do it for either the brewery's Smoking Wood or uh, Boulevard's Harvest Dance. Harvest Dance is the
Okay.
one I've harped on for years. I like wheat wines and I love that beer. And I would do that for their coffee ale as well. I think,
Okay.
those were sentimental favorites of mine and I just would love to have them back.
So
Yeah,
you
I think
you
so.
took mine, Brian. Mine was going to be coffee ale because
Yeah.
that's a fantastic dessert beer. Get you a like maple pecan. You know what, Tyler Smurr here. I mean, this would be the one that I think everybody. Good old Anchor
Yeah,
Steam. You
yeah.
you can't argue with that one. Yeah, bring it back for sure, man, for sure. Brian found a 6-pack of that this weekend.
I did. Yes. I've got
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
It is starting to taste a little dated. You know what? I'll give you the coffee ale because the Weyerbacher Sunday Morning Stout is
Oh yeah.
higher on the
Okay.
list than almost any of the other ones. You know what? That'll be my number one.
Okay.
Weyerbacher
I
Sunday Morning Stout. I want that back. I would sign. I would create the petition. I'd make the T-shirts and the stickers and I don't know,
that
wave signs and stuff for that maybe for like a weekend or something.
that one had a good PPO too on
Yes, it
Sunday morning.
did.
It was
Yes,
good,
it
good
did.
PPO. Nate, how about you, man? Is there a beer you want to bring back?
I've been thinking about this whole time. I don't have one that immediately leaps to my mind that I would like to see come back.
Okay. I'd really have to think. I bet there's some that I'm not thinking of, but the coffee ale was definitely one that jumped out to me and I'm like, yes, I would definitely like to bring that one back. And I think we discovered kind of by accident that you get something like a maple pecan coffee cake and pair it with that coffee ale
Yes.
and it's just absolutely stellar. Just really good stuff.
And I
So,
really like those. I would like him to come back and in the 750 formats.
yeah,
It'd
I
probably
did.
be
I
easier if they
enjoyed
didn't,
those.
but yeah, I like the cork and cage 750s on those. But the Sunday morning stout needs to stay in the 12-ounce bottles. That's fine. We can keep that way.
You don't want tall beer, long beer, Brian? The
Ooh, yeah.
coffee
You
ale?
know what? Now that you mention it, yes, Sunday morning stout in a 19.2. Yeah, yeah. Let's do that. Come on,
Yeah,
Weyerbacher. This is your way back to greatness. Put it in all the convenience stores. They'll sell like hotcakes. Quote me on that.
quote
That don't actually
quote
quote
from
me. You
Brian.
can quote me on that, but I'm not going to guarantee anything.
Yeah, can't say
I'll
it.
buy it.
Right. Yeah, we'll buy it. We'll buy it. Let's talk here about our beers of the week. We already talked about one. We're drinking the 99 Experiment West Coast Pilsner. Brian, do you listen to 99X now? With the relaunch?
Yeah, occasionally when I'm in the car, I switch back and forth between playing something off of my phone and doing that. So my default station, if I'm not listening to something, because I still have just a radio in my car, is
Weird.
it's on 99X, and that's
Okay.
that's my default. And when I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, this is good times right here. So
I
yeah,
live right on the fringe of where the signal starts to get a little weak. So, Nate, do you listen to 99X any?
I do.
It's
I
like an
also just
oldie
have a
station for you, right?
100.5. No, it's not an oldie station. It's
Yeah.
got some. The trippiest is when I listen to the oldie station. In Atlanta, it's called 97.1 The River, and the first time I remember hearing Red Hot Chili Peppers on it, I was like, there's no way this is already on the oldie
Yeah.
station.
Those are
it
one of the first signs of you getting older is like you're listening to the radio and they're like flashback, flashback, flashback. 20 years ago today, this was number one. And it's like Van Halen's Hot for Teacher? You're like, no.
Oh,
And that's 40 years ago now. I think.
Probably.
Wow, that is 40 years.
I'm gonna listen to a station
Oh, my
sometime and
gosh.
they'll play some doo wop song from like the 1940s and then they'll play Red Hot Chili Peppers and they'll go back to it. I'm
So
like, oh my
great.
god.
Well, that's what I thought. I mean, listen to this would seriously listen to 80s music now. I mean, that would have been like listening to 1940s big band stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That would be
I
the
know. How
equivalent.
crazy is that?
It just
Yeah.
doesn't sound right. I remember asking you, Nate, one time when we were at the studio, we're listening to, I think, just some vintage alt rock. And I'm
Mhm.
like, Nate, does this sound like old music to you? You're like, yep. Yeah. I'm like, man, it's weird. So I remember my parents playing their 50s and 60s stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is old. This is
Trying to
old
keep you
now.
boys humble.
We're old. We know it. But anyhow, 99 Experiment West Coast Pilsner. Brian did a little left-hand dry Irish Stout Nitro. Our buddy 3G texted me about that one. Brian was asking me if I had it, and
Yeah.
I have not. So I don't know if he reached out to you, but he was wondering if it was a good one or if he should just stick with like a Guinness or something like that. So
I
where's that
have
one rank?
I have done the two together, and I'm gonna say it's interesting compared side by side. The left hand is more chocolatey. They both have a little of that little sour zing to them. The interesting thing is the Guinness seems brighter, lighter, and a little sweeter, a little more caramely.
Mm.
The other one's more like more of a chocolatey type of thing. So
Okay.
they're a little bit more different than you might expect. I like both of them, and I could see my taste varying depending on what mood I'm in. So there's something to be said for the left hand, but Guinness is a classic.
So I think I'd like the flavor profile of the left hand from your description. That sounds really nice, but goes without saying that the Guinness is probably more true to the dry Irish stout style with what you get there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's probably easier to drink in volume, the Guinness,
Yeah.
than the left hand.
If you
I
want to
know
have a
they're
few.
probably very similar in reality, but just from the feeling of it, it's easy.
Good stuff, man. And also from Boulevard, Brian, this is another one both you and I have. Dank 7, which is a Belgian IPA. We're both big fans of their Tank 7 Saison. So I'm curious to see how this one does. Our man Mo Mike Nate, a little pregame action from Inner Voice. Electricity is King Dippa. Inner Voice, great newer, not brand new,
Mhm.
but newer brewery here in Georgia. From Two Tides, another Georgia brewery, Green, fruited sour. Nate's requisite green beer, pretty dark green on that one too, Nate. So
Yeah, and heavily on the fruited sour. It's got
okay,
pineapple, passion fruit, and blue raspberry, which before the show we talked about how blue raspberry is not a real thing for
yeah,
some.
I was gonna say I think that's probably because red was taken. That flavor was already taken with cherry, strawberry, and fruit punch all fall in
Mhm.
that red category. And I guess you don't see a lot of blueberry flavored stuff, so I guess they didn't have to compete with blueberry to get raspberry out there. So blue raspberry it is, I guess.
Mhm.
So, and then from Tox Brewing and Nate, I'm not familiar with Tox. Where are they from? You know anything about them?
So I don't know anything about them, and they were just at my local shop when I was getting some beers for the show. They're out of Connecticut, out of North Haven. They're part of the 12% crew, which is
The
what
12.
Evil
Okay.
Twin is a part of as well.
Abomination, I think, is in
Mhm.
that 12%
Some
family.
fat orange cats in there too,
Fat
or
Orange
something like
I
Cat, I
that.
believe
think
so, yeah.
so. Yeah. But Tox Brewing, Clarachons, Mischief,
Mhm.
and Imperial Pastry Stout. So I
Yeah.
probably didn't say that right at all, but that's what we have on deck for some drinking today.
I have one question for you, Mo Mike Nate. Is that Two Tides, does it have spirulina or whatever that is in there for coloring? Because I think that's what a number of breweries have been using. And I want to say that's like a seaweed or something like that. Some
It
variation
does
on
not
seaweed.
say whether it does or does not.
Okay. I guess that's one easy way of getting color without basically just dropper of food color into it or something. I don't know.
I've seen it in a few beers. Fantôme goes a different route. They have one with spinach.
Oh, that's right. Spinach.
Yeah, which is horrendous. I did not enjoy that one at all, but that's
Wasn't there
the
a
way they
basil
go.
one too that was all green? Somebody did a basil,
Spaten
heavily basil.
basil. I forget.
Spaten basil.
Yep, I forget who that was from, but that was
Is that
Nate.
Mickler?
Would you go? That's what I was thinking. Mickler. Would you Google up Spaten basil there, Nate,
Mhm.
and see what we've got? So Yeah, that was one. They had another one too. I forget who it was. Spontan Basil, and there was another Spontan, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, there's.
Got a
I
friend
want to say it
Stephen
was
Pete
Mickler,
here.
but yeah. Go
Stephen
ahead.
Pete here chiming in on the bring back beers, the petition beers. He wants Dank Tank's Sweetwater Dank Tank pulled porter.
Oh
He
yeah,
would
it's
bring
kind of
that
a
one back.
smoky porter.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that was all right, like kind of like liquid bacon. I'm guessing you weren't the biggest fan of that, Tim. Just going on your
I
love
don't know
of
if I ever
smoke.
tried it. I think I avoided it, but if I remember right, didn't they partner with Fox Brothers and actually like smoke them all on barbecue pits?
That sounds like it probably happened. I'm not
Yeah,
100% sure. There,
I
that
think
whole
so.
dank tank era goes back to before they redid their tap room, and they still had the big guy standing right inside the door at the beginning
Yeah.
of the tour. So I remember that.
Looks like
So Spartan
Abomination Brewing is with us there on Instagram. Guys, are you part of 12% Beer Project? I think so. So
so
some good
Spartan
stuff coming
Basil
out
is
of them.
from Lindeman's. And it's a
Lindemans.
blend of 1 to
Okay.
2 years lambic with fresh basil.
Good old Spontan Basil. All right. Good stuff, man. Well, Brian, on to the next hot topic here. There was some glassware drama this week on Twitter, I believe. X.
Yeah, there was I think there were multiple rounds of it. It wasn't too dramatic to start off with. Chris McClellan, the brew enthusiast on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. He started with a poll about branded glassware, and 65% of people that responded to the poll said it's not important for a brewery to serve their beer in branded glassware. Based on the comments, the people that were opposed to it seemed like they were thinking you don't use branded glassware because you lose a lot of it to theft. And the what's really important in terms of glassware is just that it's clean and it's the appropriate style or shape for the beer that you're drinking. The people in favor argued, I think, very compellingly that it's just a genius for marketing and advertising because of social media. And even if people steal it, people have made the point, they steal it, they take it home, they take more pictures with your beer in your glass. And a few people said this, like, this is advertising you can't pay for. Like, people just on the fly taking their own pictures of beer in your glass, with your name, your beer, and everything. It's like, it's just, you can't pay for that. So that was the first round of it. So where do you guys come down? Do you care about branded glassware? Does it ever register when you go into a brewery?
This is going to blow your mind, but I do have opinions here, Brian.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you?
So, one, no, I don't care about branded glassware. I care more about appropriate glassware. On the theft thing, I'm not sure the marketing that you get out of it offsets the value of stolen glassware, because from what I've heard from brewers, if you have cool glasses and or branded glasses, theft can be pretty substantial. I'm also not sure how much it offsets theft because having them available for sale. I'm sure it does minimize it some, but let's be honest, certain people are going to just stuff the glass and go. That's just going to,
Mhm.
probably especially as they get a few drinks into it. So I understand the benefit of having someone, shooting pictures with your branded glassware and all that. You know what? Set up a good photo op at your brewery, then set up a photo station if you want to get some marketing out of it there. A
That's a
lot of the
good
breweries
idea.
we go have that, keep your glassware in there. But yeah, on glassware drama part one, Brian, I say for me personally, it's not important to have branded glassware, but I do like style appropriate glassware.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to it, I kind of enjoy when it's got a logo on it. It is because I do take a picture for social media a lot of times, or Untapped or whatever. I like it if it's a good looking glass with your logo, something on it that it looks nice. It's a nice presentation. The thing I hate more is there's two things I hate more than just plain glasses. That's a dirty glass where you pour it and there's like a bubble stuck to the side. I'm like, come on, guys, just you're charging me what for this, and
You're a
you won't
brewery,
even
you're a
clean the
craft
glass.
brewery. Give me a
Clean
Mhm.
your
beer, clean
glass.
glass.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Mhm.
there are places that have this problem, believe it or not. And the other thing is if you give me beer with a kind of some other logo on it that's not yours. Like that's usually a tap room type or not a tap room, but like a bar situation. I hate getting a good beer like a Tropicalia in like a Blue Moon glass. Is there anything worse than that? Getting a good beer in, and not to crap on Blue Moon. Blue Moon's a fine beer. I just don't want that these two put together, and I hate that. So if you're taking a picture for social media, and that's the only time it probably really matters, you do your best to hide the stupid logo on there because
Yeah.
they messed it up. So that those are the only thing. I don't really care as long as it's appropriate. I'm fine with it. I like it if there's a logo. It's not a big deal if there's not. I'm not going to not frequent a place as a result of it.
Nate, what are your thoughts on glassware?
So in the tap room, I do notice when it's branded, and I don't really care if it's going to be branded because I'm already at the brewery and I already know I'm drinking the brewery's beer, so I don't need the glassware to tell me that it's also the brewery's glassware. And I agree where the branded glassware does have a higher risk of being stolen. And I agree with you, Tim. I do not think that the rate of return for a photo for social media is worth the squeeze to replace the glassware. I don't think the value of a photo is high enough to justify those things being stolen. And as far as what Brian said about being out in the market and being at a restaurant and you get a Tropicalia and a Blue Moon glass, like I understand the frustration with that. I would just rather my glassware be beer clean and enjoy my drinking experience.
I get that. I
Fair point.
appreciate that, Nate. I'm actually with Brian. Don't give it to me in a Miller Lite glass or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And that usually, if you're getting it in a Blue Moon or a Miller Lite or what, you're getting a shaker pint, and not
Yes.
Mhm.
every beer belongs in a shaker pint either. But Brian, this drama part two, I'm highly opinionated on this part, man. And this one gets me worked a
Surprised.
little bit. What the heck happened here?
So I would have let all of it go by, except this second phase that was inspired by the first phase got really crazy. A related post about the shape of glassware, being additive to the drinking experience, but wasn't. It's not essential. So glassware should help, but it shouldn't. Your beer should not depend on the glassware to be a good beer. So that was the opinion, and yeah, Courtyard Brewery had a controversial opinion that beer glass doesn't matter at all. It's all marketing. Red Solo cups are the ideal vessel for beer consumption. And they said that they've done many, many blind tastings over the years and judge competitions, and judges don't use tulip glasses. So that went crazy. So yeah, a lot of people that commented on that basically were saying things like, yeah, but anything but plastic. Like, we get that the glassware isn't that important, but no solo cups. We don't need any more plastic in our life. That's how you get more microplastics and everything. Let's stop with this stuff. So yeah, that's where it got interesting, Tim.
I
That is where.
agree that your beer, it's not like your beer would suck out of a solo cup and be the best beer in the world if you had a tulip or a teku or whatever you feel that beer should have been in. But ag- again, I'm not a beer judge, Brian. I'm just a drinker, a professional drinker. And I have definitely tried beers in different glasses and can tell you the experience that I've had with different styles across different glasses is different. Just plain and simple.
Agreed.
Just like, carbonation level, temperature, all of that plays into it. And it's not going to make a bad beer good. It's not going to make a good beer bad. But I think a good beer served at the right temperature in the right glass can be peak experience. And I don't think a red solo cup is that glass.
I think it's possible for it to make a good beer bad, and the only way I think that happens is if somebody doesn't properly rinse out a plastic cup. It may not be a solo cup, but some competitor of it, because they can give off like really weird, unpleasant gases when fresh out of the packaging. So I think if you're gonna go that way, you probably need to at least give it a rinse before you put beer in it. So that's my thought. I just don't like plastic. I'd rather just not come into contact with plastic anymore if I could help it.
If I'm coming to your brewery or your bar or whatever because you sell craft beer and I'm giving you 8 bucks for an 8-ounce pour of a beer, don't give it to me in a plastic cup. So,
Mhm.
and you know what? There was a restaurant we went to for St. Patty's Day last year, Brian, where their dishes were 10, 12, $20 and they came out paper plates and plastic utensils. If I'm dropping $40 on a meal, I better get utensils and a plate. It's not my fault that you're busy. Wash dishes. And no disrespect to our friends in food service, but I just think I think it's inappropriate in that context. If I am at a county fair and I get a swizzle corn dog dipped in M&Ms because they probably have that at a fair, and you give that to me on a paper plate, that's appropriate. I get that. So,
Yeah.
and you know what? If I buy a $20 beer at a county fair, I expect it's probably going to come in a plastic cup.
I was
I
just going to
just
say
know the environment,
event prices would mean that
Yeah.
you would be paying the same kind of money, but you would also be getting all paper stuff, and everything would be deep fried, possibly even the glass
The
that the
beer.
beer is in,
Yeah.
which would be crazy. Could you imagine deep fried beer glass?
Deep fried glass.
Delicious.
Deep fried glass. I saw a place that did deep fried butter, and it's like they made it into these little frozen bits with batter, and then I don't know exactly what you ended up with when you fried butter, but it existed.
Well, they've done deep fried ice cream, so that's
Oh,
somehow it. I've had that, and
True.
it's
that's a
cool.
Mexican dessert. It's good. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
tasty.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's still ice cream somehow, even though it's been burnt on the outside. It's some sort of strange. It's like magnets. Nobody knows how those work.
No
to
one
me.
knows.
That's
Yeah.
true.
No one
Yeah.
knows. I do know how fried ice cream works, but I'll leave the wonderment for you there, Brian. I won't take away the magic on that one.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, guys, I'm opinionated when it comes to glassware. You don't have to give me a branded glass. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's a real glass. I don't want to get beer in a solo cup at a brewery or a nice craft beer bar. I think that's
Mhm.
not appropriate. If I'm going there for that experience and that I want a glass. I want a glass. I want my shepherd's pie to come on a nice plate with an actual metal fork and that. Brick Store Pub here in Atlanta, Brian, talking about they really go all out with the glassware because they do for all the beers they do have branded glassware for each brewery and beer and that. You go there and you get a Belgian beer, you're going to get it in the branded glassware from the brewery. Now, of course, they end up with a ton of glassware, and I think every few years they have a glassware sale because they've got so much there. But it is nice with the experience there. Is it essential? No, but it
I
sure is
love
nice.
it. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, I love getting a Chimay and a Chimay glass. I mean, how great is that? Orval and an Orval glass. That's the way it should be. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Well, Brian, the Cheers Act bill has been introduced. What is this all about?
Yeah. So there's a bipartisan bill called the Cheers Act, like you said, that's been introduced in the House of Representatives by Darren LaHood, Republican from Illinois, and Stephen Horsford. I hope I said his name right, Democrat from Nevada. It's an acronym, Cheers is, for creating hospitality economic enhancement for restaurants and servers. So somebody's job was to come up with an acronym for Cheers. But what it would do is give tax deductions to bars and restaurants with draft beer systems. The idea is that these tax deductions will incentivize the expansion of tap systems, help stop the decline in draft beer sales, and reverse some of the economic damage that has been done by the pandemic lockdowns and the changes in habits as a result of the pandemic lockdowns, which is a thing. In the process, it would also reduce waste by creating waste that is created by venues using smaller disposable containers, cans basically. So you throw away the cans, you don't have to when you've got tap systems. You just got glassware. The bill has a lot of support already from a variety of organizations, including the Brewers Association, the Beer Institute, the National Beer Wholesalers Association, and the National Restaurant Association. So I think this one's got legs. Back at the end of 2023, the Brewers Association's chief economist Bart Watson warned that draft beer sales could reach their lowest level since World War II, and that there is, quote, zero reason to expect growth in 2024. So something needs to be done, and they're aware of this. As to where the draft lines have gone, I looked at an article in the Washington Post that there were fewer than 1,500 draft lines in the U.S. that were dedicated to anything that was not beer a beer product before the pandemic. Now it's up to 10,000 that are dedicated to mostly draft cocktails. Like this is where all of it's
Mm.
going. Like I said, 10,000 taps from 1,500. So that's a big growth there. And beer is losing ground.
That
Yeah.
is a crazy, interesting approach, Brian, to try and increase tap lines and that. I'm not sure I believe in the power of that, but I'm not gonna trash talk something that's intended to get more beer out there. So, can't argue. Good luck there.
Fingers crossed. I mean, these little economic incentives can lead to something. If people see that they could get some sort of a incentive, deduction, whatever, to throw in a couple of extra lines and add a couple more beers, they might do it. And if they can sell the beers, bonus. So I
Yeah.
maybe it'll do something. I hope it does.
Good
I hope
luck.
it works.
Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah.
Guys, we have a question here from Paddle Sports on Instagram. Brian, I will pose this one to you and see what you think. He says he gave up beer for Lent. He's still drinking, but no beer. He said, however, his favorite local brewery only carries beer. How does he convince him to carry alternatives?
Hmm. Uh that's an interesting idea. Ooh, man, that's crazy. I would say that I would let them know how incredibly popular hop waters are these days. And now this is non-alcoholic, but this is another option. How very popular hop waters are, and how popular seltzers have been recently, and and just tell them it's like these are a lot easier to make than beer, and the turnaround is so much faster. That's I don't know how easy it would be for the layperson to sell somebody on that idea, but like, have you asked them? Have you looked into seltzers? I am interested in them. I am not drinking beer. A lot of other people are not drinking beer, but they want an alternative when they come with their friends and family. That would be what I would try.
And I think that would be my big pitch, Brian, is having more options means you're open to more people coming. A group comes out, if one person there is like, I just do not drink beer, then that could rule you out as being a place to go. Also, something that we talked about on a show a few episodes back, there are new methods for making non-alcoholic beers to where
Mhm.
more breweries can do it. There's yeasts that allow you to ferment below 0.5% ABV without the need for all this special equipment. And NA beer is definitely more popular for many reasons. People choose not to drink, alcoholic beer. So that's something. Whether they do wine, a lot of breweries are adding spirits, like you said, Brian, the hop water. There's a lot of angles you could go, and I think the big play there definitely would be that more choices mean more people can come and enjoy your establishment. So,
Yep.
Nate, anything to add to that?
I think hitting them up on social media, because oftentimes you're going to get somebody in marketing who's going to see that, and they're going to have a little bit more of a direct line of communication with those decision makers and production and just the brewery overall, and just say, hey, you're my favorite local spot. I gave up drinking beer for this for a personal reason. I want to keep supporting you. How best can I do that? And maybe just put the ball in their court and see what they're willing to do as far as providing options for some of their loyal customers who just, for the time being, are not able to drink beer.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's some options there. Encourage them. If you're a good, loyal customer, let them know what you want to see. Most businesses would appreciate that. Maybe not. Maybe they're one that's like, we're a brewer, we brew beer, and that's what we do. That's
Yeah.
that. So
And it's a fair argument too.
that's a fair argument. Sure
Yeah.
enough, maybe so. Y'all, we want to give a shout out to our show sponsors here. Some folks that have been with us a long time. We greatly appreciate it. Of course, Terrapin Brewery Atlanta. This weekend, again, our show drops on Saturday. So tomorrow, they will be having the Team Hitty celebration at Truist Park. Big fundraiser for the food service industry workers who typically are just kind of teetering. When something happens, it can strike them really bad there. This is a huge fundraiser. Terrapin's going to be there supporting the event with some beers, and there's going to be food. There's going to be speeches on the impact of the organization. There's raffles. There's music. There's all kinds of good times. So go out to Truist Park, check out Team Hitty, or just drop in the Terrapin Tap Room and see what's on tap there. They've got some good stuff going on. So thank you so much to Terrapin Brewery Atlanta.
So, and like you said, as the show airs, we'll be in the thick of St. Patrick's Day celebrations. And if you're not already at your local truck and tap taking advantage of all of their holiday specials, I'm guessing it's because you're on your way there. But maybe you've had your green beer at the Lawrenceville location or your Irish coffee martini at Truck and Tap in Duluth, and you're trying to decide what to have next. After all, there are 20 taps to choose from at each Truck and Tap, so deciding can be difficult. Maybe I can help. Here are my lucky picks for the most Irish of all weekends. If you are knocking back Irish apple shots at the Woodstock location, I'd recommend taking it easy with a 903 Brewers Crispy One. Yeah, it's a beer flavored beer and only 4.5% ABV. It's a flavorful way to slow down your roll a little bit and enjoy a beer from a brewery that we just don't see around here very often. It's an easy pick at Truck and Tap Duluth. You got to go green. That means getting a pour of Creature Comforts Neon Cylinders Mega Green. It's a fruity kettle sour with a little spirulina for color. At the Alpharetta location, you can get a pint of gold without the hassle of catching a leprechaun. I'm talking about Wild Leap's Local Gold, a dry, crisp, and refreshing blonde ale. And finally, at Truck and Tap Lawrenceville, you could go green again with a pour of Creature Comforts Neon Cylinders Mega Green. But I'd probably go off script here and just forget about the theme and just have Six Bridges Irrealis, which is a stout aged 22 months in Elijah Craig and Old Fourth Ward bourbon barrels. So I hope you have a good weekend and a good time at Truck and Tap. And thank you, Truck and Tap, for your support.
Good time, man. Good time. Awesome. Well, y'all, we are right at time here. We're going to wrap it up before Instagram boots us off for those watching the live stream there. But thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you have a good St. Patrick's Day weekend and you don't overindulge, but have a good time. We hope your beer comes in proper glassware and that all your food comes on a plate. So with that said, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers. St. Patty's Day. Brian, you got to learn to pay attention to the private chat when we are in the show here. So,
well, I mean, I was going through my thing. I saw it after the fact. I saw that there were many, many messages there. So I figured they were for me.
Yeah. They're little calls to action that we deal with throughout the show. So mark that in your memory bank to keep an eye on during the show. So,
alrighty.
As you can see, I have a little bit of information in there for you.
Yeah, a lot of yes, I see that. I see that.
Good times.
But
what'd you think of this?
We had plenty of time. Yeah.
What'd you think of the 99 experiment?
I thought it was fine. Drinkable, enjoyable. There's nothing at all wrong about it. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I would go out of my way to find a bunch more, but I thought it was good.
I think it's a little low on the carb for me. I think it could have been slightly more effervescent. And I noticed that noticed that when I poured it. But again, I'm not anything West Coast is not my first choice, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good there.
A little bit more carbonation definitely would have helped now that I'm thinking about it. Sure.
Yeah. Oh, well. We are going to wrap this up. If you're one of our Patreon supporters, and we sure hope that you are, we'd love to have you there. Then we are going to drop the link in our Discord for you to come join us for the after party where we'll probably have another beer and maybe some snacks. Who knows, man? Who knows? But y'all, thanks so much. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.